What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to G-Ball Vision. Today I have another exciting unboxing to dig into for you guys. Before we get started, double check and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I would love to have you here. And before you head out, do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciated, everyone. And feel free to let me know what you're carrying in your pockets today down in the comments. I love hearing from you guys. So we have a knife that I decided to go ahead and pick up. I just took this out of the mailer. It is something I wanted to check out, so I decided to go ahead and pick one up. There has been, I'm sure, plenty of videos done on this knife, but I've been asked by many people to get one and give my thoughts on it. Plus, I found it interesting enough to go ahead and pick up. It's going to come with our standard Civivi stickers and microfiber cloth, 10-year anniversary sticker, and they're back to white microfiber cloths, it looks like. So what we're taking a look at is the Civivi Starflare. And this is a fairly new or brand new release for Civivi, and I thought it looked really interesting. There's some things I really like about it. One in particular is this blade shape. I love these types of blade shapes, these really fine point Warren Cliff style blades. It just comes down nice and thin, and you know with Civivi you're going to get some good edge blade geometry. You're going to get good cutting performance out of their knives. Whether you gotta sharpen it once or twice, that's kind of up in the air, but you can get lucky for sure. Now this is going to be a button lock with dual thumb studs for deployment. You have no flippers, which I don't have a problem with. We have open construction here. We do have, what is that? Is that a stop pin? I guess it is a stop pin. So we have a double stop pin, and then we have two standoffs. They look really good, by the way, clean standoffs. Then we have a little bit different pocket clip than we typically see from Civivi. I think they have went back to the drawing board on their pocket clips. Now, as we can see here, this one is surface mounted with recessed screws. Now, I do prefer that more so than when they chamfer out or recess the pocket clip and don't include a filler tab. I cannot stand that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. Although this is not the prettiest thing in the world, it's definitely better looking than having a big chunk of the handle missing and no filler tab, which Civivi is known to do. But in the case of this one, if you had an extra screw laying around, you could put it in here, which I may end up doing, and that would really clean that up. I don't know why they don't just put that extra screw in there to clean this up completely, but I think I can handle that on my own. But otherwise, this is a really good, clean-looking knife. I do like how they did this pivot collar here. I think they should have blacked out the Civivi emblem there on the pivot completely. They do that on some models, but it looks good. It looks good, and I'm glad they don't put anything on the show sides of the blades typically, not from my memory anyway. They just put their little emblem on the pivot there, which is what I would prefer way more so than something on the front of the blade there. And another reason I wanted to pick this up, try this out, is because it's a button lock, and the progression of button locks just over the last couple of months, forget the last year, definitely over the last year, but just in the last couple of months, button locks have went from good to amazing as far as how strong they can make that opening deployment for these knives. And it doesn't matter, thumb studs, a fuller, a cutout, a front flipper, a rear flipper, they are just doing a phenomenal job. And not just Civivi in particular, where I'm talking about all the major retailers and even some of the sub major retailers with crossbar locks, button locks. These companies are doing a very, very good job. We're going to be getting Nitro V for the steel instead of 14C. I do much prefer 14C over the Nitro V, but Nitro V is, Nitro V is a good steel. It's just not better than 14C. Of course, those are my opinions, but 14C is way tougher. I just prefer the 14C. That's what I would have rather have seen on this knife. I'm not sure what makes Civivi decide one or the other. I would like to kind of know that, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. Nitro V is a fine steel. This knife is going to carry pretty deep here. We got our issuing stitches hank out to kind of resemble what this would look like in the pocket, and it will carry pretty deep, so that is nice. Plus we also have the opportunity to switch the clip over, so that way lefties can carry this guy. We do have a perfectly centered up blade. They do chamfer this area out here where the button is, so that way it's kind of recessed behind everything else. So that means you have to more so deliberately be pushing in that area, be pushing on that button in order to disengage it. It kind of protects that button, in the off chance that you were going to be over top of this area, whether you're lefty or righty. It kind of protects that button from getting accidentally pushed. And although I've never had that happen, it is a huge question for a lot of people. And I have heard of some instances where that does happen to some people, but that has never happened to me before. And I have handled well over 50 button locks easily. I own over 40. Look at that little, right at the tip there, that needs touched up. Can you guys see that? I can feel it kind of dragging. It might be just a burr that needs kind of finished off there, but it is definitely nice and pokey, nice and thin. And while we're talking about that edge, why don't we see how sharp it is? So I have lots of notebook paper. Came into a lot of free notebooks, so that's what we're going to use for a little while here. And Civivi is known to have really good edges out of the box and really good blade geometry. You might get, a whiff here and there, but for the most part, they are going to do a very good job. That's one thing Civivi does really well, is they put a great edge on these knives. Yeah. This has a nice fine edge on it. Other than that little burr there right at the tip, which is where it gets extremely fine. Other than that, it feels really good. It's more so, you can see it on this side. You can see the light where I can feel it dragging on my finger. I think that's a burr. Now, one of the major questions for some people is going to be, how is that lock? And is it strong enough to withstand some tappage on its spine? And there's no movement up or down. And there's no movement side to side. So it is nice and solid, and it's perfectly centered. It does have a nice stout spring in there as well. You can get a really nice wind up on this thing. We do have positive lockup. Let's see if she holds up here. And we'll do one more just for good measure. Good job. That's good. Good and solid. So, first impressions on this knife, it's definitely, a more futuristic looking knife. You have this two-tone Wharncliffe blade. Everything's kind of blacked out and grayed out, which I enjoy that aesthetic. I like this, little subtle two-tone blade. It's mainly all coated, but then you do have this very you know, small percentage of the blade that has what looks like a hand satin done on it. It looks really good. And then you got the black studs to go along with it, and then it runs into this black aluminum handle. So it looks really good. This particular version, they do have other versions as well. This is kind of the one that spoke to me the most. They did have, I believe they did have an uncoated version, or at least the primary being uncoated, I believe. But this is the one that really spoke to me out of the couple options that I saw. This would be a good candidate for a milled clip as well. And then you do have that nice pivot collar around on the clip side too. I do like how they kind of Pac-Man that out around the button. That's what it looks like, is kind of a Pac-Man going to eat the button. That's what it looks like anyway. As far as ergonomics in the standard grip, you know, I have about XL sized hands or so, and I can get a full grip in the regular position on this handle. And then you do have this area here. I wouldn't call it, I'd call it more of a 50-50 area where you can choke up behind that edge if you want to, which is, that's where, you know, I would probably do a majority of my cutting, is just like this and or like this. And I love the ability to climb up there with the index finger, you know, wrap my middle finger around this 50-50 area, and I like to do a lot of cuts just like that. You know, precise type cuts, you know, detailed type cuts. That's how I do a majority of my cutting, either this way and or right up behind the blade. That way you can have a ton of control over this blade. But yeah, I forget what I paid for this. I want to say, I don't know, 60, 70 bucks maybe, or something like that. And I think that's what it cost. If it costed more than 70, it might be a little more expensive than it should be. But 60 to 70, I think that's a fair price for this knife. I honestly forget now what I did pay, but it's really well made. It's a very unique design as well. They kind of stepped outside the box with this one. As far as the button lock action, like I said, it's got nice stout springs in it. You can really wind up on this guy. The reverse flick is equally as good, if not better, than the thumb flick. And then as far as the disengagement, there's no drag on that blade when you depress the button. You do get kind of a... So if you let go too early, it does stop the blade. So, you know, you got to get your timing right. But you can do the old push the button and let it close ordeal if you time it just right. But as you can see there, if you let out too early, you can stop the blade from closing. But once that breaks in, maybe gets a little bit of oil on there, that'll be extremely smooth. But yeah, very good. You know, solid lockup, solid springs in there, perfectly centered out of the box. Hard to ask for much more than that. Depending on the price tag, which, like I said, I forget, but I think it probably falls right in there. If it's more than 70, then you better really like the design, especially with Nitro V. If it had 14C, you know, I would say a little bit more would be fine. But if you really like Nitro V, which there are people who do, then that's completely fine. It's a good steel. And this is a really cool knife. This is probably one I'll hang on to for the time being, at least. You guys will have to let me know. What do you think of this knife? I love hearing from you guys. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. I greatly appreciate it, everyone. And if you like knife and EDC content, we release videos just like this one every single day. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the little bell. I would love to have you here. Otherwise, guys, I'll throw up a couple of new videos. Go check one of those out. Have yourself an awesome day. Thank you for watching. I will catch you on the next one.